Greetings, 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 good people, and welcome to another series I'm calling Behind the Veil. I'm your host, Mr. Cat Okade, and this series is really going to be about going behind the scenes and checking in with the happen makers and culture change. You know what I'm trying to say? The culture keepers and the happen makers who make the culture go round. For this very first edition, I'm really excited. We are celebrating Women's History Month, so it made sense to feature some dynamic women who are doing some amazing things. And who I have today is very exciting because they're about to launch their anthology on March 8th when this comes out. So I'd like to introduce to you the compilation crew, the people who put this together, this amazing anthology called In Her Words, African Women's Perspectives on Gender and Equality. So we're going to meet them one by one, and then we'll get into a conversation. Hello, greetings.
Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Tawa Khalid Karim. I'm calling in from Lagos, Nigeria. It's nice to meet everybody.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi, Kat. Thank you for having me. My name is Zainab Haruna from Abuja, Nigeria.
Welcome. Hello.
Hi. Thank you also for having me as well, Kat. It's nice to see you again. My name is Omolayo Nkem Ojo, and I'm also calling in from Lagos.
Love it. And rounding us out.
Hi, Kat. Thank you for having me, having the Awards Book Compilation Committee. My name is Joy Sani, and I'm calling in from Abuja, Nigeria.
All right. So we are missing one sister, Isatu Jallo, who could not join us today. Shout out to her. It's a beautiful crew of 5 women who are out here doing this. So let's get into it, ladies. First of all, welcome and congratulations. I am very excited to have my copy on my iPad of the book. I can't wait when the time comes for this to be printed because, you know, I'm tactile and a bibliophile and I love a good book. And I think so we lost Talouit, but I guess she'll join us back in. How does it feel? How does it feel right now to have this out? I mean, you guys have been playing and massaging and bringing this baby to life. The baby's out. How do you feel about it?
I think that there's a lot of excitement. I mean, during the process of working on this, it was just like, oh, we're putting together a project. You know, we're ticking off we're dotting our I's, we're crossing our T's. We're just focused on the work aspect of it. And then the first draft came in, you know, with the cover and everything. And I think everyone just freaked out, like, oh my God, it has our name on it. And we had like the whole freaking out process. In the group. But yeah, we're pretty excited. I mean, we've been working on this for over 8 months now, and it's really exciting to see it taking shape and, you know, ready to introduce it to the world, and the world gets to see what we've been working on. So we're pretty excited. Yeah.
Lovely. Anybody else want to share what it's like now that the baby is out of the womb and here for the world to see?
I kind of wanted to add on to what Zainab said, that we, at least personally for me, I kind of keep having that moment. So we saw the first draft and I was like, oh my gosh, guys, this is real. And then when we posted the cover reveal on our Instagram page, I was like, you guys, I'm about to post something and our name is on the front. And I got excited, forwarded to my mom, things like that. And then, Kat, I thought that analogy you used where you were like, oh, the baby's out of the womb. As someone who actually had a baby recently, I thought that's actually very apt.
Wait a minute. Hold on. What? You had a baby?
Ooh, yeah.
Really?
I didn't realize this was the first time you're knowing. Okay, yeah. I guess I haven't really shared it that publicly.
You had a baby. You had a whole human being? Oh my God, this is exciting.
I don't know what this is about.
Congratulations. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
That on me. That's crazy. That's congratulations.
That's so fun. I always forget like who knows and who doesn't because I've just been off social media for a few months. But anyways, the point I was trying to make is that I think it's quite similar where it's like, you know, up until that, you know, D-Day, you're kind of just like going through the motions, like, you know, it's an idea in your head, like, of course, it's something you're working towards and everything, but it's not until like you're on that table, like pushing it out into the world and then you see it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is real. And I think like birthing this book was a very similar process, kind of what Zainab was saying. You just go through the motions, tick off the boxes, like make sure it gets done. Like, did I do this right? Did I do that right? You know, have we cross-edited? Have we done this? And then suddenly it's real and you're like, oh, wow, you know? So I think it's actually a very similar process. Not
Yes.
the exact same, but
Right.
the emotions are similar.
Yes.
The ride of the emotion.
So Tawa Khalid or Joy, did you want to share some of your thoughts about, you know, pulling this out?
Joy, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Oh, wow. Okay. You don't want to go first at all. Okay. I just want to say that, yes, everything that Zainab and Omolayo have said, like, I've been really excited. But for me, it has also been quite inspirational, you know, the journey, just knowing that you can do something. I never considered that I'll ever, you know, write anything that will be published like this or work on such a project. And doing it has sort of, apart from building capacity for me, it has given me, I think, impetus to do other stuff that I would never have considered, you know, my thing. So now I consider myself an authoress, so I'm going to go on and just write. Write stuff.
You're,
very inspirational.
You're a published writer. I love it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, when you said impetus, what came to my mind was this clip that was going around Instagram one time where the guy was like impetus and was saying that basically like you can now be proud and stuff like that. So I think for me, it's just really seeing the quality of writings that we got.
Yeah.
You know, I read some articles and I'm like, oh my God, like what do these people think we are to trust us with this depth of work? It was just, It was amazing. And it was very clear that people took it seriously, you know.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about putting their fingers to the keypad and just typing something and then sending it. It took work. I mean, I remember one of the articles I edited, I told Zainab that literally this person took us into the realm of academic writing. Like there were references, there was history, there was all of that. I'm like, oh my goodness. So it's just been like really learning from all of these incredible women and just seeing the really amazing body of work that they put together and that they trusted us with that. It's just been really great.
You know, I love that you have that thought that, because sometimes I think there's an arrogance that as editors and curators that comes with that position where you're like, yes, you're submitting to me. So that so I love that you all were like humble on the, I can't, you know, that understanding that people are trusting you with their children.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Really, I think important to the process. And when I look at the design, when I look at the layout, the order with anthologies, I always look at the table. I always study the table of contents because I feel like the table of contents tells me the story that you all are trying to tell with these works. And so I spent a lot of time just looking at the table of contents, just because I wanted to see like, okay, what's the arc of the story? I loved the sections. There were some that like I had to walk away from and like, let me come back and look at this later because I'm in my feelings now because these women are bringing up some things. And so my first question for you all is, what made you want to curate what you refer to as a love letter to African women? Like, why do this? And why do this now? I can call names. I'm a professor. So,
please do.
So let's start. Let's go in reverse. Joy, you go first. What made you want to do this? Joy, can you hear me?
Okay. I wanted to do it first of all because of, you know, my Zainab was the one who was leading this project.
Right.
You know, but then again, I also wanted to do it because I am not much of a fighter, but this gender equality always gets my hackles up. I see how unfair it is. I see how, you know, and I don't get why. This is common sense. This is just, you know, it's just common sense. Why should we treat a person differently because of their sex? Right. Why should we have different standards for people because of their sex? And for me, just talking about my own journey, you know, journey to discovering that I didn't grow up aware of gender imbalance or gender inequality. I only began to get exposed to it as I got out into the world. And I wanted to share that, not because I felt it was, you know, mind-blowing or anything, but because I felt like if someone listened to my story, maybe they would better be able to empathize with, you know, my gender, with the the journey that we are forced to travel just because we are this gender. So that's why I shared it. Not because I felt, oh, my story is so great, but because I feel like if people listen, if they read each other's stories, I'm not telling you, I'm not, it's not just an article, it's not just a research paper, a term paper. I'm actually telling you my own story and showing you my heart and showing you my life. As in that, if you are a human being, you are going to be touched. And that's the best way to do things, to touch people in their hearts first and then find change. Do that.
Thank you for that. Tawa Khalid?
Okay, so I feel like one of the things that I say about life is that life is a paradox in many ways, So I like to say that life is short and life is also long. And so, I also say that if it was based on just my personal experiences in life, then gender equality would not be something that mattered to me. And that's why I try to tell women, and that's what I hope that other people can get through this book. It doesn't have to be your particular experience before you realize that this is how the world faces certain people. Right. So even with women, there are intersectionality of oppressions. So for example, I as a Black educated woman cannot begin to equate my experience to a Black formerly uneducated woman. It's just different. We have different struggles. So what I really want people to take from this story is that, and while reading through the articles, it was very interesting that these are different women from different countries on this continent and beyond, and to still be able to find common threads in our stories. Now, specifics are different, of course, but it's just saying that these things are not so different. Like the problems are basically the same across the continent. Right. And I hope that we can just get our heads out of the sand and just choose to see the actual truth. Like, we're not crazy. We also just want to live life and have fun and not have to say the same thing over and over. And I'm tired of saying the same thing. We don't want to keep saying the same thing. But the reality is not changing, which means that the conversation cannot change either. And I hope that people can just open themselves up to experiencing those different shades of truth.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Omalayo?
That was beautifully said. So I think for me, the reason why I decided to participate in this project was, so I'm a big believer in putting my money where my mouth is. And so I mean, of course, and I've always been an advocate for gender equality. I think similar to Joy and it seems Tawa as well, that I didn't really grow up with the sense of like, oh, I'm unequal because I'm a girl. Like, luckily for me, I grew up in a house where I felt pretty free and everything. So it wasn't until like 2013 or so that I really became aware, like, oh, there's other women in this world that didn't grow up that way, that because of their gender, because of this, that, and the third, they can't go through certain doors. And then also myself personally, I started experiencing that just because of, that's when I kind of started traveling more, seeing more of the world, going outside of the bubble of my family life, and then once I was aware, like there were even things within my own family life that I was like, wait, actually, because I still grew up in a pretty traditional African home, so I was like, now in retrospect, I'm like, but the point is that at that time, when it was actually Tawa who invited me to contribute an essay. And then in the invitation that Zainab sent, she said, if you want to join us on the team, like, let us know. And so I was like, okay, I have something to say, but I think I actually have more also. I also have like talent and time to contribute. So let me go ahead and do that. And that was because, like, yes, I say I'm an advocate for gender equality, but at the time I wasn't really doing anything about it. I felt, like my education is in migration and things like that. And so the work I was doing was in that space. And of course I was enjoying it, but I felt like I wasn't doing anything to move us forward in the realm of gender equality. So when this opportunity came up to contribute to this anthology, not just at the level of a contributor, but at the level of someone who helps put it together and helps bring it out into the world, it seemed like an opportunity to finally, like, put my money where my mouth is, which is exactly what I wanted to do. So I didn't get a chance to ultimately be a contributor just because of all the things that were happening in my life during 2020. But being able to be part of the team that helped bring it out into the world has been so enriching. And that's also been a real lesson for me in being able to, like, be behind the scenes and, like, be like on the back end of things,
Right.
instead of like, oh, this is my essay and whatever. It's like, okay, this is everyone else's essay. This is how to highlight their work. This is how to highlight
Right.
their voices. This is how to highlight their stories. And so that's been a really powerful experience for me as well.
Excellent. And rounding us out, Zainab.
Thanks, Kat. I think for me it was sort of like a combination of different things, right? It was the arguments that I've been seeing on social media around issues of gender equality, which, as Joy said, should be common sense. But the whole back and forth with different people saying, "Oh, but I don't think you're not having the right to do something. I don't think that should be a problem. I think it's something that." And it used to blow my mind, like it blows my mind on a daily basis how we can have arguments on whether people should have access to certain rights on the basis of their gender, should have choice, should have freedom, should have dignity on the basis of gender, or really on the basis of whatever it is that we've decided, is our remit and doesn't belong to other people.
Right.
And so I really, I've gotten into the conversations a bit, but I felt it was important, and also because I, having this really big understanding and big respect for documentation, right? So we're here for what? Maybe the next 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, and then we're done, right? And we're gone. And then, maybe the people coming after us will have similar arguments as well. So it's really important to document stories, right? So that when you're no longer here, people can read back, look back and say, yes, oh, this is what women during this time were going through. These were their experiences. This is what they were saying. So the book, the compilation, the anthology serves not only the present generation, serves not only the people now, but also for the future as well. So it's holding experiences together, so that people can make reference to it, so that people can read. And so I'm also hopeful that it also helps to build our tolerance, because like I said, when I first reached out to people to work on this with me, it was saying that we live in a world that says all of the right things about feminism and gender equality, but when you look at the lived experiences of women, we don't seem to be making that much progress, right? We're still having the same issues. I remember last year or 2 years ago, I was speaking to some girlfriends of mine, who are all from different countries, and they were saying they feel a bit um, disenchanted with gender equality. They feel like we've been fighting for these things for so many years, but we only make just very tiny progress, over the course of our lives, right? Like, and at some point it becomes, are we fighting a losing battle? So we seem to be saying all of the right things, using all of the right words, but our experiences as women, our lived experiences as women, don't seem to be reflecting that much change, during the course of our lives. Why is that? What is happening? And so I'm hoping that this book will also help to expand the prism for tolerance, the spectrum for tolerance when people read it. And this was also part of our decision to make it, accessible, free, so that different people around the world could download it and read actually what women are going through, read their stories, read their lives. It is not just an argument on social media. This is the life of someone. This is what someone is going through. And as someone who's been doing quite a lot of work with women over the past couple of years, and just the fact that maybe you marry a woman, you determine whether the woman gets the right to work or not. So she's living at home, she's doing all of the unpaid domestic chores, and then after a while, the man is no longer, because I work with widows, so the man is no longer there, who is the breadwinner, and the women are just plunged so sharply and so deeply into the deepest levels of poverty, where they can't even get themselves out of it because they have no formal education, they have no skills whatsoever. So it's really difficult. So all of this, just coming together, like I said, was a combination of different things. And I thought it was important. The best time to do it was yesterday, but the next best time is now. So let's just get this done. And that's how I now reached out to different people and, pulled together and we worked on this.
Well, so first of all, thank you for saying all of that, because that's important. Everyone needs to hear that. I think what I love the most about what you all have done is you have reminded everyone, myself included, that our words matter. I'm a writer who doesn't share her work. So I was like, we do each other a disservice when we don't leave trails and we don't leave breadcrumbs about our lives. The other thing, that I think is important, as a Nigerian American who's as recent as maybe 7 years now, been going back home often, I've developed these little sister crews, and they really, one of the things the book I think really touches on beautifully across all of the submissions is how there is an inherent understanding as girls and women in these communities that something's not right. But there's no language and there's no support. So that even if you know some, like I was that kid, and so go clean, we all had chores, but if the boys didn't do their work, my mother would be like, please do it for me. And I'd be like, but mom, it's not fair. You told them to do this. And I would literally have this whole, I would wear my mother out with grammar around, you said that they had to do this. Why do they now not get to do this? And, she would do it for me. She's my mother. What am I going to tell her? No. But that created a cycle. And I see that cycle now in how my brothers are as men. And so what I love what you've done is you've given people different ways to access this idea around what gender equality means. And at the same time, you've given them language that they can now take back, hopefully, and use in their communities and question, because some of the time, the problem with gender equality is the language. African men hate the F word. They hate the word feminism. It scares them. It's like, you hate men and this, that, and the third. And I wanted to talk to you about that. The use of the word feminism is sown quite nicely throughout all of the the energy of it, and the word is used throughout some of the submissions. It's not a word that I necessarily identify with, but it is a word that I know has a lot of punch. It gets people gets their back up, and sometimes it's an entryway into conversation. How did you all how do you approach this for yourselves, and what was the thinking behind how you were going to bring that into the works that you submitted, that you accepted for the anthology? And I'll start with Omalayo. No pressure.
None whatsoever, because I actually wanted to go first. So perfect.
I thought that.
I think sending you vibes. I think your question reminds me of a question that I asked the rest of the team early on when we were still collecting essays. Mm-hmm. Because when Zainab sent us the email about, join us here, join us there, join us on this, I think, Zainab, you used the word gender equality for the most part. I think feminism was in it a little bit, but for the most part, I think you stuck with gender equality. And so when I shared it with a few friends, I have a friend in the UK that I shared it with because I knew she had interesting views on feminism. And so when I shared it with her, she was like I expected, she was like, oh, no, I don't want to contribute because I'm not a feminist. And I'm like, oh, okay, but it's not just feminists that have to, it's not just people who identify as feminists that are meant to write. It's just anyone who wants to share their perspective on gender equality. So you can just share what you think of it. You can even write an essay about why you're not a feminist, things like that. She's like, okay, I'll think about it. But I don't think she did. So she didn't end up contributing, but that was a conversation that I ended up taking back to the other ladies on the team. Is this a book for feminists or is this a book for African women? Because those are not the same words, right? Just because you're a woman does not make you a feminist. And just because you're a feminist doesn't make you a woman. So that too. And so I think for us, we kind of, once we had that conversation that this isn't just for feminists, this is for all African women to share their perspectives on gender equality, whatever that looks like for them, whatever that means to them, whatever terminology they want to use for it, that is what this book is about. And so from then on, we kind of tried to be using gender equality in the term, in the title, and in the way we talk about the book, because like you said, feminism is a very hot topic word. And so while a lot of people have feminist ideals, they don't want to be called feminists. They don't identify with the term. They don't want to use it. So in order to not exclude people based on just that one term that can mean so many things to so many different people, not that we shied away from it, we just didn't make it the central term of the book. And so I think by using gender equality, it allowed people to come in from more perspectives, from more ideologies and things like that. So that was kind of where we were going.
Okay. Tawakali, did you want to say something? I felt like you were.
So, everything Omalayo said is definitely true. And I remember very clearly that conversation where you were asking, also, guys, are we going with feminism or are we going with gender equality? Now, personally, I'm going to be honest and say that although I've upheld feminist ideals for a long time now, I only started really consistently identifying with the term feminist, I think like 2 years ago. Up until then, it was like, I'm a feminist in my heart. I don't have to call myself a feminist. Nobody has to know. I live as a feminist, But I just decided that it sucks that the world has made this word like a bomb word. What does feminism mean? It means equality of the sexes, full stop. Literally. So although it's become many different things on social media, it really just means one thing, And if you go through the essays, I can't remember whose submission it was, but there was somebody who was very particular about knowing that men are not the enemy. I can't remember the particular essay, but there was a particular essay that she was very particular about men are not the enemy. And when we talk about feminism, we must realize that there are some ideals that are foisted upon men themselves that are harmful to them and are also in a larger sense harmful to women in the society. So that's another thing that I hope that we can achieve with this book. Just because I think that a lot of the backlash that feminism gets stems from fear. That's what I think. It's like, how dare you be so loud? How dare you be so bold about what you think you deserve, what you want, what you need, the things that are important to you. So this book is really about, we're not giving anybody a voice. African women already have voices. We're just saying, hey, we're creating a platform and we hope that you join your voices with ours, and then we can just amplify all of these messages that we all individually have. So it's like, if you want to write about feminism, write about feminism, want to hear what you have to say. If you want to write from an angle that is more like, gender equality, they want to hear your story. And if you don't roll with any of these terms and you're an African woman, you know what? We want to hear you too. Is there something that you want to share with us? And it was a really inclusive process. We're very particular about not excluding anybody based on their ideas or their ideals, and just saying that we're not trying to tell you what to think. I'm very big on the statement that African women are not a monolith. Right. That one woman does something a certain way doesn't mean that we all do it that way, or that we all have those ideas. We're very different people. And so it's natural and should be encouraged that we have different ideas, and we really try to communicate that to our contributors.
I love it. Joy, what about you? Any thoughts? You're on mute. Unmute yourself. Joy, you're on mute. Unmute yourself.
Oh.
Okay. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I was just saying that I really agree with what Tawa was saying, and I just want to leave it
there. Okay. All right, Zainab, what do you think?
Okay, so first off, I actually find it quite interesting because I submitted an essay to this work as well, and I use feminism. In fact, it's in my title.
Yes, it is.
Yes, because I find it quite interesting how scared people are of a word, right? Like there's this word and the word just comes in and everybody just gets all up in their feelings and there's arguments back and forth. But it's just a word, right? That represents something very simple. And when we're doing as part of our process to putting this together, we had to do videos to respond to the question, why did you choose to write what you wrote about? And I wrote it for a very simple reason. I'm tired of having the same arguments about feminism. I'm tired of people coming to ask me, what is your feminism? I'm tired of people saying, the whole argument of the different types of feminism going back and forth. Look, so going forward, I'm just going to share the work with people and say, go read it for yourself. You can download it. It's free. Just read it, right? Because I feel like we're having the same conversations over and over again. And I think people need to query very closely why the word feminism really scares them. Feminism is an ideology, and there are tons of different ideologies in the world, right? So if for instance, if we trot out Christianity, right, today, and we're talking about Christianity, and even with the different flavors that Christianity takes on across continents, across the world, no one is really there saying, I'm not a Christian now because so and so person did so. So there's all of these flavors, and this is really why, again, this work is important, right? Because I think the arguments also, what tends to happen is when people get all up in the feelings about the word and the definition of the word and what it means, it drives us away more and more from achieving the goal exactly of what we want, like, which is equal representation, equal rights for women, access, opportunities. So it keeps pushing us further and further away from what we want to go. So I'm not interested in having that conversation about what, and that's why we wanted to sort of tone down the book. So using gender equality also helped us to avoid having those arguments which took away from the essence, because we didn't want the collection to come out and people are like, oh, is this feminist again? They brought out a book, and then people focus on arguing about what the book is supposed to be rather than reading the stories themselves. Yes. So when you look at the cover, you're like, oh, it's perspectives on gender equality. Okay, I'm going to go in and read a few essays. So it allows people to go in rather than stopping on the cover and getting into an argument on social media. Now they have to, they can actually read the book and read the different viewpoints of people.
Is it safe to say, because I'm a Gen Xer, is it safe to say that this is because I don't know the ages of the women that submitted, is this a millennial perspective for you in terms of the writers, in terms of like the writers' ages? Was that the intention, and is that the case?
Okay, I'm just going to respond to that. We didn't target, like Tawa said earlier, we were quite inclusive in the submissions process, right? We wrote to as many women as we knew. We did an online form where those women could share with the women that they knew. We put it up on our social media, so women we did not know and people that we knew, that like it was open to everybody, right? And we're also like, anyone can write. If you have something to say, here's the topic we're looking at. If you have something to say about this, then share. And that's why it's called In Her Words. It's not us putting words in the mouth of people. It's them using their own words to write what they think, what they feel, what they've experienced. And so we put it out there. I think there are maybe a few Gen Xers in the book. There are also quite a number of millennials, and I think there are also quite people within like 24 and below. I think there might be a few of them in there as well. So it's quite inclusive in terms of like the submissions that we got. It's just, different women from different parts of the continent. Some of them not even living on the continent, but, having African origins as well, contributing to the.
So when I think about how African women are portrayed in the media, just in so many ways, oftentimes people are getting it wrong, in my opinion, because they're not talking specifically to African women, and Africa is not a country. So you're often dealing with these very siloed and myopic ways of thinking about African womanhood, and it often reduces African women to these very two-dimensional ways of being. I have a couple of faves. I'm not going to say which because I don't want anybody to be upset. But what I do appreciate is the different styles and the different lenses that we see throughout the book. I wonder for you all, when you were thinking about what you wanted to say, you talk about it's women on the continent and in the diaspora. How do you think African womanhood has been portrayed? And what do you think this anthology adds to that conversation that might help kind of expand some things? So I'll start with Tawa Khalid.
Okay, so thank you very much for that question. I think it's a very important one. So one of the authors that I got to really get into, I love reading books, and one of the authors that I really got into last year was Bell Hooks.
Yes.
Right? And I mean, she has this book, Ain't I a Feminist? And I remember reading it, and a very particular angle that she took it from was about how a lot of the global conversation around feminism is really about Western feminism. So we think that the issues that feminism should target are issues that affect white middle-class women. And so we make this conversation very uninclusive, because you're talking about only a certain kind of woman. And I see that honestly in the African perspective too.
Yes.
So, I always try to be conscious about this. And it's why I really try to live by this statement of we're not speaking for any woman. No, women did not lose their voices. It's just that some women have more access than other women, which means that naturally, by virtue of that access, those women have access to certain stages, certain kind of conversations. They can influence certain decision making and all of that. So I remember that in that Bell Hooks book, she was talking about how when feminism really took off and, Western feminists took hold of it, it became about can women work in corporate organizations? Can women get paid better? But there are women who don't even have access to the workplace, So that conversation about getting paid better, it doesn't even concern them. It excludes them because they don't even have access in the very first place. And that's an error that we tend to make even when we talk as African feminists. So, I mean, I think it was 2 years ago or last year, I'm not very sure again, time moves really fast. I worked with a woman I worked in the sexual and gender-based violence space, who was very determined to leave her husband, who was physically abusive, right? And also sexually abusive.
Yeah.
And she was done. She was just ready to leave, and she didn't have a job at that time. So there was the case of economic sustenance and all of that. But my point is, this woman who doesn't have really any extended form of formal education, she knew exactly what she wanted. And she was, there were options like, oh, do you want to get counseling? Do you want to work with a mediator? She's like, no, I need access to the courts. I need somebody to place a legal embargo on him. I am done. I want out of this marriage. She's not formally educated, but it doesn't make her stupid, Right. So a woman like that may not identify as feminist. She might not have a lot to contribute to the conversation on gender equality in a way that a lot of people will listen. But in her life, with her personal ideals, she shows that she values herself, that conversation, she's living it in her own life, even if she's not having it on stages. So that's something that I hope that we can all pay more attention to, just realizing that the conversation around gender equality means different things to different women. And it's also in one of the essays, in fact, it's the very first essay, Awa's essay. She talked about a woman pulling off her hijab.
Yeah.
Because in that, yes.
I was so stressed out. I was incredibly stressed out reading that. I wanted to fight somebody. I was like,
and as a Muslim woman myself, it was something that I could really, really relate to. Growing up, I've had people ask me tons of times. You wouldn't believe how many times. We get to some place, you don't know me except the fact that I'm a Muslim, but then we start having a conversation and you're like, oh, you're a Muslim. And you can hear the very palpable surprise in their voice, like, you're a Muslim and you somehow can string your words together, or you're Muslim and you have an opinion and you feel free to share that opinion.
Right.
And there are a lot of monolithic expressions that we impose on people based on their identities. So if she's a Muslim, then you already think she's a certain way. If she's a woman who uses a hijab, you already think she's a certain way. If she's a woman who doesn't use a hijab, you think she's a certain way. Just yesterday, I was watching a BBC video of a young woman in, I think it was Enugu. She went to the market. No, she was actually in a keke napep, a tricycle for non-Nigerians. And the tricycle passed through the market, and this man had the audacity to reach inside the tricycle and touch her laps. And they told her to her face that if he wasn't there, it was a man driving that they were actually going to beat her up in the market. So because you see a woman, and she's like, the weather is hot, I don't want to wear something long. And because you see a woman and she's wearing a bomb shot, and you're already thinking, oh, she's probably a slut. So all of this imposed identities based on things like how you dress, what you identify with, it's very limiting, And I think that because the world has reminded us of those things so often, even women have begun to believe it themselves.
Listen, we don't have time for that's part two when we talk about the conditioning. That's
okay, so we'll just stop there.
You people will be here for hours, and we all have things to do. But I think you're raising some really important points. Joy, what do you think before I, do my follow-up? In terms of how African women are perceived, what are your thoughts? And how does this anthology help to sort of expand the idea of what an African woman's experience is? You're on mute. Joy, you're on mute. There you go.
I'm sorry, I keep forgetting.
It's okay. No worries.
Okay, so I think that when people look at Africa, first of all, look at Africa as a country, they expect us to be all the same. And I think it was Omalayo that was talking about how, no, it was Tawad. I was talking about how what Western feminists are fighting for is very different from what we are fighting for. And then even within Africa, when you read the different stories, you realize that every country, every region is fighting different. Everybody is facing, it's very nuanced, really.
Yeah.
But the truth is that at the core, what we are trying to say is this isn't fair, this isn't right, this shouldn't exist.
Right.
And one day, hopefully, maybe in our daughter's time, we are not going to have these conversations. I hope and I pray that we don't have to have these conversations. But what this anthology has done, even for me, is that I'm able to see that, look, it is very nuanced. My experiences are unique to me. As much as I would like to foist it on everyone and think that, oh, people should have the common sense, think that boys and girls are only biologically different and nothing else, But this anthology has helped me see how different all of us are in our journey to the same goal,
Yeah.
So I think that that's what we are contributing, a collection of these varying perspectives. And I mean, for people who aren't Africans, who don't have roots in Africa, it will probably be a very huge culture shock for them because they cannot even understand or comprehend what it is that we are fighting and what we are facing. So we're going to be showing that to the globe, to the world. But for Africa now, it's like, oh, my sister in Zimbabwe. I'm seeing like, oh, this is what she's facing. I can imagine. I begin to put myself in her shoes, and someone, in the Gambia is listening to the stories or reading stories from people in Nigeria, and she's like, oh wow, as in this is my own, and look at how theirs is so different, and yet as unfair and as painful. So that's showing the nuances and the differences, which are still, things that we should fight. I mean, the fact that maybe the level of inequality that I'm experiencing doesn't seem to be that deep as compared to maybe someone who is talking from the Gambia, doesn't make it, less valid.
Right.
So that's just saying that, okay, we may be further along in our fight here, and these people may be ahead of us in their fight there. We're still able to show empathy to everyone who has, brought out their different stories, their views and their perspectives. So I think that for me, what it's doing is that it's showcasing how different it is for each person. I know that what I wrote doesn't represent the entire country, Nigeria, because I am at a different social strata than a lot of people. In fact, there are people who can never, in the same country as me, who will never experience the kind of inequalities I have to face, so it's not anything like that. So that's showing how different it is and yet how similar, or we are fighting for the same thing, we're fighting for equality, and so we are all fighting for the same thing, but from different points of the battlefield and from different, levels. So some people have conquered much more than others, but we are in it together at the end of the day. So I think that's what the anthology has done for me.
Beautifully stated. Thank you so much, Joy. Zainab, what about you?
I think for me, what like when I was reading some of the essays, I had to step back because I was really upset. Right? Like, people go through stuff in this world. People are going through it. Women are going through it. I remember reading one particular essay where the writer was talking about in that particular African country, when a woman gets married, she's now responsible for taking care of of all of the in-laws. Like, she lives in the same house with them. So imagine getting married to someone and then the father, the mother, all of the extended family all living in one compound, and the woman is responsible for taking. I'm like, wait, what? I was so upset. I was like, no, this is not. I was so upset. And then, reading other people's essays as well, where one person talks about being sexually assaulted, 3 times before she got into her 20s.
Yeah.
And, all of those stories just really showed me, like, these are things, of course, that I haven't experienced. But again, the point of the anthology, it was documenting all of these stories. So I haven't lived it, but someone else is living it, which brings home the message again, which brings home the point again that this is a fight worth fighting. Like Joyce said, we're on different points. On different points on the battlefield, but we're all in the battlefield. Yeah. Whether we like it or not, we're all in the battlefield. And at some point, what Tawa was talking about earlier in terms of intersectionality, women might think, even the women who think, oh, feminists are doing too much, or this gender equality, I don't really see the point. At some point, it does touch you. It touches all of us. But
Absolutely.
you know how hurtful it is, or the depth of the pain might be different, but it does touch all of us in some way or the other. And at some point, we get to feel it. So it's really important this fight. And I quite liked the fact that the stories were not they showed the struggle. They put it forward in really stark terms where we're not putting anything. This is it. This is what we're going through. But there's a strong sense of, but we're not settling. We're not taking it lying down. We're going to fight, and we're going to keep fighting. And this is, we are here. You're going to see us. You're going to hear us. It was a strong. I remember someone reading and said, my grandmother didn't take it. My mother didn't take it. They paved the way for me, and I'm definitely going to pave the way for my daughter and my granddaughter who are coming after. So it's this strong sense of togetherness of women across generations, from their grandmother to their mother. And even though their grandmothers did not identify as feminists, they didn't even know the word, they didn't even know what gender equality was. But women, you see stories of women who held up their entire families, who broke their back so that their families could stand. And that strong sense of, yes, we can do that, but don't take us for granted. You need to deserve us. You need to give us all of the, you need to give us our rights. You need to give us access to opportunities, because we can do the job. We're equally as capable. That strong sense for me was, what was able to prop me up after reading some of like the really, heart-rending stories that were in the compilation. But that sense of, these are our stories, but we aren't broken, and we're going to continue doing the work. We're going to keep fighting, and our daughters will live, in a better world than we are currently living now. For me, yes, that was really, what I pulled out of the anthology.
Thank you, Zainab. So, Amalayo, the question was really around the way we see African womanhood is often very it's very siloed. African women, they suffer, da 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 da. Or, if you're rich, you don't suffer, and, all the things in between. I wanted to know how you felt the anthology added to the conversation and hopefully expanded sort of the idea of African woman identity.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, thank you for the question. I think my colleagues have kind of already said basically all of it. What I will add as someone who works in international development, so I think Zainab and Tawa can probably identify with this, is the idea that so many people now want to speak for African women, right? Like a lot of times in progressive international development, buzzword international development, it's really important to go, but what's the women's perspective? Oh, let's add the gender lens. That's the word they like to use. Let's add a gender lens, and there's a lot of buzzwords around around it. I mean, some of course some organizations do it really well, but for a lot of organizations, it's just a fuck exercise to show that you are gender conscious, right? So a lot of them will be like, okay, we need information about this, but marginalized people like women and those in the rural areas, or marginalized people like women and youth, or marginalized people like women and poor people. And I'm like, okay, but what about poor women? What about rural women? What about youth women youths? Like, you know what I mean? So like whenever people are talking about adding African women to the conversation, it's always in the sense of like, oh, these very marginalized people who can't do anything for themselves, let's tick the box that we've talked to one of them. Do you know what I'm saying? And then, okay, we've talked to one of them, so this is what African women think. And so I feel like what this anthology adds to the book, and the reason why we chose the title is like, this is what these particular African women think in their own words. Like, this is not the headline story from some NGO. This is not the, quick snap that you can share on all the social medias for your campaign or whatever. Like, this is their stories in their words from their perspectives. And so I think that's like the title of the book is what it adds into the conversation. Like, these are the perspectives of these 15 very different women in their own words.
The beauty of what you all have done is that you have, in a lot of ways, stated the obvious to those of us who understand the importance of women. Because with every entry, it's very clear that everyone would die if women just decided, you know what, we're not going to do anything. If people don't, if women actually, if African women actually decided, you know what, you're on your own, there would be a lot of people just that wouldn't make it. You know, so what I found heartbreaking and hopeful was how much these women, and a lot of women, are in their situations knowing inherently that this is not fair, but are thinking about the future and saying, okay, you know what, I'll just deal with it. And I think I'll just deal with it, I will put up with it, is really because they're thinking about their daughters. They're hoping that, you know, I remember my mom telling me, I wanted you born in the US because then I knew you could do and be whatever you wanted to be. In her mind, that was a better option than having me born in Nigeria at the time. She felt like this, at least with this society, yeah, it's got its issues, but you can now go and be whoever you want to be. And when I think about my life, I don't know that I would have this life if I was living in Nigeria, to be honest with you. The freedom that I experienced, because when I go home, I'm like, oh my God, I can't move the way I'm used to moving. I have to really be careful. Like things that the privilege that I have because of my educational background and you know how I live here, when I take that across the way, I have to like recalibrate. And so it was really important, I think, for you all to kind of give women that space. I'm super, super, super proud of you. I see a lot of myself in a lot of the works that I'm reading. I don't think any of us are like, I think Omalaya, you said it. You were like, I grew up in a pretty, you know, open family, And then when you go back and look, you're like, there's some things here that might be a little tricky. So I think it asks us all to take responsibility. So you all are doing the amazing work of building the village and giving the village voice. And I love that you are standing in this power of amplification, because I think that's the important work. I think to me, that's the thing that I'm really proud about, is that you all have chosen to amplify these stories with all of your gifts. Omalayo, you know, I know Omalayo's work as a PR person, as a get out here and let people know what's going on. And so I'm looking forward to the release. So let's talk a little bit about that. What's the plan? I know March 8th is the big day because it's International Women's Day. Zainab, can you walk us through what we need to do to make sure we get a copy? Well, they get a copy. I got my copy.
Okay, so we're releasing the book on the 8th of March to commemorate International Women's Day 2021. And we've partnered with a brand that we really love to do this called Agbowó. And so the book is going to be available on their platform on March 8th, and then anyone can just go there and download it. And then if for any details, they can follow us on our social media. We're on IG and Twitter. On IG, we're inharwords.africa, and then on Twitter, we are harwords_Africa. And so they can follow us to see more information about what's happening. We have a launch party happening same March 8th, same Monday. We have a launch party. So what we're doing with the launch party is we're having a few of the contributors to really come. So we want to delve into, you know, what they were thinking when they were putting stuff down on paper, what were their thought processes, what they hope that their essays is contributing to the, you know, the overall conversation. And so we're having that. And also the compilation team will be there. So if people have questions that they want to ask the compilation team, or they want to ask the contributors, because all of the contributors are also going to be available, that's an opportunity to ask. And then March 9th, so we have like a whole full week of activities sort of lined up. On March 9th, we're having a book reading on Document Women, which is also another brand that we love, which, you know, really is looking to do the work that we're part of, but really document the stories of women, so that women are not, you know, pushed back when the stories are being told. So we're going to have one of our contributors reading her excerpts from her work on Document Women platform, and then we'll have some sort of other events as well, which we're still in the process of fine-tuning and finalizing, but as usual, we'll continue to share on our pages.
Thank you for that. So people can just follow your social media to make sure that they stay in the loop of things. And okay, so I'll also put in the description of this where you can get the book. There'll be a direct link to agbowó.com where you can download. It's a free anthology. Everyone needs to go out and download this book. And then I need you to read it. I need you to share it. Because here's the thing. Read it. Get excited. Share. I'm gonna challenge everybody. Share it with 10 people in your life. You know, at least 10 people, and not just women. Share it with 10 people, because I'm gonna make my brothers read this as well. Share it with 10 people, and everybody just let's big this up, because these women have done an amazing job of getting this, baby out to the world, and we want to make sure that their success is our success. Like, we all benefit by having these words out. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me for the very first of this series. I'm honored to sit in this space with you. Thank you for the work that you've done, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You.
Thank you so much. It's been a very
Thank
amazing
you for having us.
conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I can't wait. I will
to be in your face.
listen. I'm so excited. I can't wait to I'm trying to get to Nigeria so bad. I struggle. But you know what? There was one more question. I'm terrible. I'll end the show. I'm like, wait, well, there's one more thing. I'm so glad. Is there plans for another? Like, you guys have started something with this In Her Words. Is there plans to do other anthologies under different themes? That's what I wanted to ask before we jumped off.
People will have to wait and see.
Okay.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
You're gonna have to wait and see.
Okay. I'm just checking, because I want to throw some ideas at you people, and I don't want to be the one doing all the heavy lifting. So, but yes, thank you again. I appreciate you all so much. You are amazing.
Thank you so much.
The world is a better place because of you. So take care. Please check out the description in the bottom of the at the bottom of the video. I'll have all the links there for you to go and get your copy. March 8th, this comes out. Please download. Show these sisters all the support, because this was not an easy lift, and they got it done. And with that, I'll say goodbye, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.